Good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. The two big pillars of the conservative takeover of Washington are immigration and the economy. By all accounts, very few people are illegally walking into this country anymore looking for a free bed, free food, and a bus ticket to the city of their choice as they were during the Biden years. But turning the economy around is a longer-term project, and the president has acknowledged that. During the Biden years, government spending occurred with very little mention of deficit spending, but turning the big ship of the national economy and federal government spending is going to take time. You can see what's going on in the mixed signals from the monthly government economic reports. The latest report on the gross domestic product showed the economy shrinking for the first time in 2 years. But there's big growth in new jobs, more than the experts expected. All the talk of new tariffs at first sent Wall Street numbers down, but as time went on, there was talk of several international negotiations underway. The market came back. President Trump says the economy is in a transition stage, and even with all the progress of closing down the border, arresting and deporting criminal gangs has run into a wall of local judges who appear to be fueled by that same anti-Trump sentiment that the Democratic Party is running on. With that, I want to bring back our friend and a political analyst, Bob Cusack. Welcome back, Bob.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for having me on.
I thought it was interesting, the timing that President Trump put out that he was going to reopen the infamous Alcatraz prison. It's been closed since 1963 and used as a tourist attraction in San Francisco Bay. He said it will hold America's most ruthless and violent offenders. And we need the additional room in law and order administration. What do you think of his idea?
Well, it's unique, Alan. There's no doubt about it that Trump comes up with creative ideas, and he was asked repeatedly how he came up with it. And obviously it's an island, and as he mentioned, no one has escaped it. There were multiple attempts of escaping, but the FBI figured out that anyone who did make it into the water probably didn't survive. So there are some obstacles, there's no doubt about it, as far as changing it to now from what it's a museum and turning it back into a prison. And there's some cost concerns, so there are some barriers, but without a doubt, it got a lot of people's attention.
Clint Eastwood starred in Escape from Alcatraz, and by coincidence, the president also announced a new tariff on foreign films. 100% on films made outside the U.S. A lot of them are shot in Europe, Canada, Cape Town, and other places where it's less expensive to hire crew. Would you agree that it seems to be a part of President Trump's plan to level the playing field for American business?
It's interesting because, since the strikes that we had a little while back, writers and actors, the industry has really suffered, and really the movie making industry has come to a grinding halt. It is basically a recession or depression for that industry. So Trump is trying to boost it up and obviously ties everything to tariffs. It's unclear how that will work, but at the same time, it also shines a spotlight on a lot of people in that industry who are not working right now, and they want to go back to work, and he wants to do something to get them back to work.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the tariffs. I think most people understand the goal of not letting the rest of the world undermine the products we produce, but it's still something that most people won't see a return on anytime soon. The president says target number one is China. Listen to how he explains it.
$5 billion a day we're losing on trade. And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And we've essentially cut off trade relationships by putting that much of a tariff on. And that's okay. We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. We lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey because we're not doing business with them right now.
Well, eventually there'll be some sort of deal between the U.S. and China. But in the meantime, we're hearing scare stories about how businesses and the markets are looking for stability. Is there any good way to manage the messaging on all this change?
Well, I think going after China is very popular. Both parties do it, especially in election years, and that's what Trump ran on. And we are seeing a bit of a showdown, a game of chicken between China and the United States. They have not started to talk yet. There's been hints from the Treasury Secretary, but those talks are going to start soon, but they haven't. China has vowed to be tougher than the United States as far as waiting this out. They call this tariff idea a lose-lose situation. At the same time, they have manipulated their currency. Both parties say that in the United States, Democrats, Republicans. Charles Schumer says this. So I think there had to be some type of reforms. And as you mentioned, Trump has to tell people to be somewhat patient. I think people will be patient. But going into the election year, there's going to have to be some results. And I expect there will be some results. We'll see some deals. I don't know if we'll get a deal with China by then. But certainly, I think the talks will at least begin, because it doesn't make sense for either country, because our economies are so intertwined.
Well, another early target of the tariffs was Canada. And the new prime minister just met with President Trump, who said there would be no change in the additional 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, and that America doesn't want the cars built there or a lot of other Canadian products that the U.S. already makes. For his part, the new Canadian leader, Mark Carney, told Mr. Trump that Canada is not for sale. Well, it all looked very cordial, but how do you think this new relationship will play out over time?
Alan, it's going to be tense. There's no doubt about it. Trump is again spotlighting something that most Americans didn't think of before he was elected for the second time. Is why is it that we have these trade deficits? Why can't we make them more even? And that's a rational argument. Now, as far as there has been some concerns from Wall Street and certainly Democrats who were saying this is going to cause supply chain issues, and some Republicans are nervous that these tariffs could go on for a long time. But Trump's goal, as we all know, is the art of the deal, and he wants to get plenty of deals with countries. And he's focusing on, as the Treasury Secretary is, Scott Bessent, focusing on the countries that we do a lot of trade with and have a trade deficit, so it can be more even trade, more fair trade, as the administration says.
Well, one bit of good news that hasn't received much attention is the $160 billion worth of savings that Elon Musk's team has found. That's the equivalent of a personal tax savings for each and every American taxpayer of more than $1,000. If you add to that the new business investments of $7 trillion, that's a lot of factories and a lot of jobs across the next few years. It's good news by any standard, but most of the media has ignored it. Aren't both of those big accomplishments big news stories for anyone who cares about our economy?
There's no doubt about it, with record debt and deficits, and a government that has, both parties do agree on this, become too bloated. I mean, remember, it was Bill Clinton 30 years ago who said the era of small government, big government's over. Well, that wasn't quite right. Government has grown and grown and grown. Now, I think that number is going to go up as far as savings, and the Trump administration is going to try to use some of those savings and get Congress to approve them formally so that they can help pay for the extension of tax cuts. But there's no doubt about it that, as you said earlier, no one is really talking about dealing with the deficit. Now, Trump is not willing to tackle Medicare and Social Security yet, and eventually somebody's going to have to tackle those because they're headed for bankruptcy. But he's at least talking about it where other presidents kind of ignored it.
Well, let's take a short break. We'd like to have you share your thoughts with us. You can go to ajnow.com, a question, a comment, or even a good idea. It's all welcome here. Later in the show, I'll help explain how to best process what's going on in a way that follows the truth from Scripture. That's a biblical worldview. I'll be back in just a moment. We're back now with the veteran political analyst, Bob Cusack. Let's talk about 2028 for a moment. A number of Democrats are already popping up in New Hampshire, trying to see what kind of reception they might get. Several names are popping up, including the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, AOC, the moderate Ro Khanna. Even Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton's names have come up among the chattering class. Bernie Sanders is leading the pack with his well-known narrative about the president. Listen to what he's saying.
We have a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. We are looking at an unprecedented attack on the foundations of American democracy, and under Trump, a movement toward authoritarianism.
Well, from what I saw in the polls, Americans want real change this time, regardless of whatever income level they come from, rather than just more finger pointing. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't think finger pointing works, and calling Trump names doesn't work. We've seen that for the last 10 years, and obviously Trump is now president for the second time. Listen, Alan, I've covered the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I've never seen the Democratic Party so weak in my 30 years in Washington. They don't know where they're going. They're rudderless. We don't know what they stand for. And as far as who's going to be the next nominee, certainly not going to be Harris. There's no doubt about it. I don't think she'll even try to run. But I don't see another Barack Obama in the wings, at least not yet. And even back then, Democrats would come up with, in 2006, they had 6 policy ideas and it helped them win back Congress. And then Barack Obama got elected. Democrats are not doing anything like that now. So a lot of voters are just wondering what they stand for. And really, no one can remember what Harris was proposing. And part of the reason Trump won is that he gave tangible ideas like no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security and overtime. People remember that. It was all about the economy. That's why Trump won.
Well, an interesting thing is happening on the Republican side. President Trump has made clear that he's not interested in serving beyond his second term, but he's not endorsed J.D. Vance, and he recently brought up Marco Rubio's name. He's the current Secretary of State. What do you think's going on there?
It's a great question. I've always been kind of intrigued by Marco Rubio's comeback in the MAGA world. But without a doubt, J.D. Vance is a very, very powerful vice president, and I think one of the most powerful vice presidents we're going to see in our lifetime. And I think he will be the heir apparent. Now, I think Trump, he doesn't want to yield the spotlight. It's only been 100 plus days. So, but at the same time, Vance has a lot of allies in the administration, and Trump likes him and respects him, and I don't see any tension that happened between Mike Pence and Trump happening between Vance and the president.
Well, one thing about this president, he prides himself on coming through with the things he's promised, including no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. Do you think that the savings from the Doge team will be enough to make up for the new tax breaks as Congress tries to get the big budget and tax bill over the finish line?
They're going to have to make some very difficult decisions because they don't have, if you look at the pot of money that's been approved by Congress and what Trump wants to do, extend the tax cuts, as well as have these new tax cut ideas, I don't think he can get everything he wants. That said, even if, and I do think at some point, I think it's going to be a tough slog to get them the tax cuts renewed, but I think by the end of the year, certainly, they're going to get that done. And whatever they don't get done, they can also say, well, we need to pick that up in 2026 and have another tax cut bill. You know, Grover Norquist, who's an anti-tax activist, loves when every year there's a tax cut. So I think that they'll bring it into an election year. Anything they don't get done of the campaign promises in 2025, they're going to pursue in 2026.
Well, I've got one more question. There's a rumor bouncing around, it's significant in D.C., that the Washington football team want to go back to their former name. Do you think the Republicans and Democrats are going to agree on that change?
I don't think so. I think they've got a new stadium deal that has to be approved, and there's a lot of politics about the name of it. At the same time, there's a lot more excitement in Washington now that they've changed owners, and now they're going to get, potentially, if it's approved, a new stadium, as well as the NFL draft coming in a couple years that would be on the mall in Washington. So that's pretty exciting. But I still think, even though a lot of people don't like the name Commanders, I think that name is going to stick for a bit.
All right. Well, Bob Cusack, thanks for your time today and for helping us sort out all these moving parts. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Alan.
In a moment, some thoughts of my own and what Scripture's got to say about times like these. There is a path and there's hope behind it. I'll be right back. We're living in a time when observable truth is often denied in the public square. It's like the sun coming up in the east, and there's some talking head with lots of letters at the end of their name saying, oh, actually it comes up in the south. It's disorienting. The previous administration said our border was secure, and the legacy media happily passed along that narrative, which they knew to be false. Millions came through our open border. We don't know who came in. We don't know where they are. We don't know to whom they were attached. Well, now the current administration, by simply enforcing the existing laws of our land, has reduced illegal border crossings by 95% compared to just a year ago. Yet the news cycle is dominated by dubious anti-Trump protest over his immigration policy, with no mention of the tremendous win for all Americans of a secure border. The truth is being denied in the public square. The Doge experiment is cutting waste and fraud and exposing the looting of America. But according to the legacy media, the Doge is an attack against Americans. Well, consider this. Before Doge's efforts, 90% of federal employees had not been working full-time from the office that taxpayers were paying for. That's absurd. Those are jobs that have been deemed significant enough that the government established them, yet many federal workers didn't have enough respect for what they were doing to go into the office. Those are our tax dollars being wasted. You know, we've used our military as a social DEI experiment, providing medical treatments to alter a service member's biological sex. Folks, if you're not paying attention, that's looting our nation. How did we end up in this place where the truth of a Judeo-Christian worldview that's been at the core of our nation's history is being denied? Don't lament the politicians or the political class or whomever you consider to be the power broker. The looting of our nation isn't a political issue. Sadly, I think Christians have been hidden from the discussion. We haven't had the courage to step into the arena and talk about it, to express our perspectives. We sat idly by in ceded territory. We have to change. We have to speak up for the truth. Zechariah 8:16 says, "These are the things which you shall do. Speak to the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment for peace at your gates." If we will lead with our faith, if we will refuse to capitulate when there's pressure, if we'll be more concerned with pleasing God than pleasing the people around us, I believe we can see the greatest move of the Spirit of God in our lifetime. I'll be back with your emails in just a moment. Thank you for taking the time to send us your emails. Your thoughts and perspectives are always important. And just a quick reminder, you can always go to ajnow.com if you miss a program, and you can see them all listed there so you don't ever have to miss one. You can also sign up for our newsletter, and we will keep you apprised of what's happening, not just with the program, but the larger ministry. Carolyn Kay from Augusta, Georgia wrote, "Angels, Demons, and You is the most astounding book describing the book of Revelation I've ever read. I have always been in awe of the book, but this book revealed to me how true it is. It's exactly what I've always thought, but was afraid to voice my own opinion. I wish I could share 100 copies of it, but we'll share the 2 I now have. So thankful I have found you on TBN." Well, Carolyn, the secret's one life at a time, so you share those books, and we'll see what God will do. Neil Christensen emailed, "The United States spends billions of dollars in foreign countries. Why not spend some of the taxpayers' money right here in the USA to accomplish 2 goals? 1, bring manufacturing and products back to the U.S., and 2nd, to give help, hope, and a paycheck to people in our country who need it." Well, Neil, I think help is on the way. Our president and those working with him are working diligently to return manufacturing to our nation. It's going to take a bit of patience, but I think it'll be worth the effort and the sacrifice. Ronald G. from New Smyrna Beach wrote, "I wish this show was longer." Well, Ronald, some days I agree with you. We need 2 things to happen. We need the network to agree that's a good idea. Then we need the resources to make it happen. If you pray, we'll pray. Finally, Vicki from Arkansas, "My question is, where can I find reliable, truthful daily news sources? Could you mention a few?" I can mention a few, Vicki. We've got the trifecta every evening, back to back to back. It starts with Charlie Kirk, and then this strange character, Alan Jackson, followed by Eric Steckelbeck. If you take those 3, you'll get a good start on what's happened today, and all of it in it with a Christian worldview, and that really does matter. Well, finally, I'd like to say that with your help, we're getting more and more people watching our show each week. Truth and hope, it cuts through all the noise. I can see it in the emails that we receive. Those are who you write, telling us how grateful you are to have found a place where you can trust what you hear. You know, the world is certainly challenging enough to navigate. When you have to navigate what's real and what's fake, it's even more complicated. So let's keep going. I'd like you to ask a friend or a neighbor to watch as well. Spread the word, and we'll do our best to spread the truth. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Alan Jackson, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Good night.